You are listening to StarStyle, Be the Star You Are on World Talk Radio, where the world comes to talk and listen. I am Cynthia Brian, your personal growth consultant, bringing you the movers, the shakers, and the pioneers on the planet who will inspire and motivate you to greatness. At one time or another, everyone applies for a job, and most of us really would like a raise as well. Well, Russ Hovendick, a national award-winning executive recruiter, has motivated hundreds of people through his multiple roles as recruiter, career coach, training consultant, business owner, and a volunteer chaplain counselor with the juvenile jail and prison system in South Dakota. He is the author of 2 new books, How to Interview and How to Ask for a Raise, both very important books. Welcome, Russ, to StarStyle, Be the Star You Are.
Cynthia, it's just a pleasure being with you today. I really have looked forward to this.
Well, thank you. I look forward to it, too, because these are 2 questions and books that everybody needs. I think everybody wants to know how to interview, and at some point or another, everybody is like, hey, I really deserve a raise, but nobody really knows how to do it. Now, I'm going to start with your book, How to Interview, What Employers Want to Hear in Today's Competitive Job Market. And I think that subtitle is what's really important, what employers want to hear. Because I am an acting coach, and you started out your book, How to Interview, with the number 1 question that is asked in the entertainment business when you go on an audition, and that's tell me about yourself. And, you know, everybody seems to freeze. It doesn't matter how great they are as an actor or how great they are in a job situation. When most people hear, tell me about themselves, it triggers that shiver down the spine, as you said. So let's talk about that question in the business world and how an employer really wants to hear the passions and who you are as a person. And, of course, the last thing they want to hear is, what do you want to hear?
Exactly. Well, you know, it's so commonplace, I guess, that question that comes to play, because it's a opener that employers use to try and strike up a conversation as well, and yet it's a very important question, and a lot of times individuals immediately start to think, well, where should I start? What should I be telling them? What's of interest? And it seems when nerves set in, then people start to, as I say, lubricate their jawbone, and they start talking about things that have no bearing. And so they talk about their birth order, they'll talk about where they were born, they'll talk about all these different things. What I teach is different. And a lot of times when I'm putting individuals into interview sessions, of course they're prepared for this question, but what I teach people to do is bring the attributes to light that really make them or will set them apart and from others. Because as I mentioned, in the title, the job market's very, very competitive, and you need to set yourself apart from the competition. And so what I do is, rather than to give facts at that opening, what I do is direct people to take and bring what it is inside that makes them different, their passions, what excites them, what gets them out of bed in the morning, those types of things, and verbalize that, and then take a supporting statement after that takes, I call it a statement of credibility, that actually describes in detail a little bit more. So if a person says, that I am an action person right from the start, well then what's that statement of credibility that would define your action? That type of thing. Leadership, what defines that? That you might say, I have a passion for leading others and bringing a common vision. Okay, well then how did you do that in a prior setting? And so the statement of credibility that follows that brings much more credibility than just the buzzwords that are thrown out there all the time.
Right, and you talk about these buzzwords have really become cliche, and the most important way to express yourself on an interview is to share a short story of how you accomplished this. So, as you said, don't just say, I'm an action person, but demonstrate, how you are an action person and how it happened in another job. Something I think that was very important in your book, How to Interview, What Employers Want to Hear in Today's Competitive Job Market, is there are many people today that have had a gap in their employment record because of the downturn in the economy, and how to address that, because that gives people pause and fear when they're going into an interview and they think, oh my gosh, I've been unemployed for 18 months and, they're going to think I'm worthless. So would you share with our listeners some tips on how to approach that in a positive way to show that you have been constantly learning or volunteering or moving forward, even though you may not have been getting a paycheck?
Sure. I think it's important right out of the blocks to talk about terminology too, because sometimes when I'm interviewing individuals, they'll say, "Well, I was terminated," and the connotation that goes with that is that you were fired. Well, termination takes on a different flair than it should, because if you were downsized, there is a significant difference being downsized that was part of the economic downturn like you're talking about, as opposed to being fired. And I address actually both on how to address that. So in terms of if you were downsized, were you part of a downsizing effort? What I mean by that is, was there 20 people, 30 people that were downsized at the same time that you were? How many downsizing initiatives did you survive until you were actually downsized? So you might have been part of phase 3, phase 4 of a downsizing effort. Well, with each phase that you actually survived shows your value to that organization. And so you use these things to bring value to that conversation. As you've been sitting on the sidelines, sometimes in downsizing situations you'll have severance paid. They might, because you've been an employee for a certain amount of time, you'll get a paycheck that's equivalent to how many weeks or how many months of service that you've done or how many years. And sometimes people sit on the sidelines and they use that money up until the end, and then the midnight hour they go, oh, I better go attack the job market now. And during that time, it's okay to do that, but I think it's, I always advise people to be very, very active all the time. And by that I mean going out and researching companies, going out and taking some courses. There's tons of free courses to take and better hone your skills in leadership, whatever the case may be, and show that you're active and moving forward in the process as opposed to sitting and just waiting for something to come to you. The more active you are and the more that you can demonstrate that you've been aggressive in terms of your pursuit of prospective employment options, sets a tone with an employer very, very well.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I am the executive director of the charity Be the Star You Are, and it was interesting the last few years how many people had been downsized, outsized, whatever, fired, terminated in one way or another.
Sure.
And it was fascinating to me when people would reach out because they would say, as I'm in between jobs, I want to keep my skills really clear, and I'd like to do some volunteer work and they would be very specific. The ones that were good would say, I need 3 months of volunteer work or whatever. And I thought that had to look really good on a resume if you're just keeping yourselves very much, on the edge as opposed to sitting on the couch and watching sitcoms. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. The website is directionalmotivation.com. We are talking to Russ Hovendick, and his book that we're discussing right now is How to Interview What Employers Want to Hear in Today's Competitive Job Market, and we're going to get to his second book in just a second. But he has 3 P's. That's his method in all the books. It's prepare, present, and be professional. So preparation, presentation, and professionalism are the keys. Many people don't prepare for a job interview. I mean, they don't even know sometimes what the company does. And you gave several examples in here, which, if you don't know where you're going, it's like any road will do. Talk to us about the importance of preparation.
Well, preparation is absolutely key, because what it does is it helps you to understand the culture of a company. If you're looking at a company, you understand what they do, you understand their mission statements, you understand whether you actually fit them, that type of thing. But, as individuals, we like to know that somebody knows something about us, and you're in a conversation, and they say, well, you know what, I saw that you did this. And you go, wow, well, that's pretty cool. And it's a compliment. And so a lot of times what happens...
It makes a connection as well, right, Russ? I mean,
oh, yeah,
because
absolutely.
we're all humans, and we want to feel like we're important and appreciated, and by doing your homework, you show that you care.
Yeah. Yeah, and believe me, it sounds really crazy, but so many people will go to an interview and they don't know what a company manufactures. They don't know the history of the company. They're just looking for a job. Well, employers are looking for somebody that can make a difference, somebody that can actually affect the bottom line, because that's why they are in business. And so it sounds just really crazy. But the people that actually go out and research companies, prepare, they know the individuals that make up the chemistry of the company, by knowing that going in, set themselves apart just in that little portion right there. Another thing is researching is so easy to find out on LinkedIn, those types of sources, that they can find out where the individual went to school, that type of thing. Sometimes there's a commonality of just going to the same school, being from the same state, whatever the case may be. And it's just those little things that can really separate you.
It's really important. Again, it's a connection, because people like to work with other people that, I don't want to say they're exactly like them, but at least will complement their work ethic, etc. And if you feel that there is this common thread, you're going to be a little bit better off. And you had a great example in here of a young lady who applied for a job and then in the middle of the interview asked, now what is it you guys make? And they said beer. Oh, she says, I don't like alcohol. I can't work for you. I mean, why bother? That was a waste of everybody's time.
Right.
That was not a good thing. So let's, I want to move on just a bit, because what I like so much about your book is you talk about behavior-based interviewing in here, and in the chapter on preparation, some critical activities for every job interview. And one of the things you talked about was body language and coming on time, et cetera. And it's really important that from the moment you walk in the door that you're on, as opposed to just thinking that the minute you walk into the interviewer or the HR's office that you have to be on. You have to be on your game from the moment you step out of your car.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't realize when they walk onto the grounds of a company that for many very progressive companies, everybody's an interviewer. They're all watching you. And so sometimes it's the individual that's the security guard at the gate. They have an input. I have a company that they take all that information in and say, how did they respond to you? How did they act? The receptionist, how did they treat them? All the way down. And so a lot of times they'll say, or individuals will think in their mind, okay, when I get in the interview room, now I got to turn it up. You know what? You've already made your statement many times. It's really unfortunate. I had an individual that went through the process, and because they do a follow-up with the HR department, and they thought that this person was they were condescending to him because they thought they had the job. And so they were condescending to him. And it was really interesting because they take everybody's viewpoint into consideration, and that individual didn't get the job because they treat him that way.
And as that individual should not have gotten the job, because in my opinion, everyone is great. Everyone's a star. Everyone has a place in life. And I think our purpose as individuals is we need to treat everyone with respect and with dignity. I just remember on a personal level years ago, when I would go in for an audition for a movie, I always talk to the secretaries, and because they're the gatekeepers, but I just treat everybody like I treat everybody. I mean, everybody's the same to me. And what was really interesting is a few years later, I got a call just out of the blue for a movie, and I never even had to audition, and I didn't understand why. It turned out that secretary had become a casting director, and she thought that I was perfect for the job, and what she remembered was all the years that I was nice to her. Mm-hmm. I wasn't nice to her because I thought she was going to be a casting director one day. I was just being myself.
Hey, nice is a good thing. It really is.
Yeah, but I think that's the point that you're making in the book is just be yourself and be kind. Let's just go over a couple of etiquette things, and then we're going to get to how to get a raise. It was interesting, your story about the business casual and the man who showed up in flip-flops and shorts to an interview. That is so inappropriate.
And I used the term, and this individual was, coming out of college, so I said, he asked me, what should I wear? I said, well, business casual. And he caught all that statement but the business side. He caught the casual. And that excited him, and so he said, wow, this is pretty cool. And I said, they're really a laid-back, very, very friendly environment. You're really going to like them. Well, he took my message of casual to the extreme and showed up in cargo shorts and flip-flops.
Yeah, like he was interviewing for a surf shop or something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And he was a tremendous talent, but we have to be on top of our game. Research the company. Even though I said business casual meaning Dockers and a shirt. Type
right.
thing.
Yeah, khakis and just something like that. Well, this is this book that we're talking about is How to Interview, What Employers Want to Hear in Today's Competitive Job Market, and we're talking to Russ Hovendick, and it's spelled Hovendick. And as you can hear, he has years and years, over 2 decades of experience in recruiting and coaching and helping people to do a great job interviewing and to book the job. Now, he's also wrote a wonderful book, How to Get a Raise, the correct way to ask for an increase in salary and wages. And of course, no matter who we are, we always, at some point, we want to get a raise. But it's really not very appropriate just to stand outside the door of the boss and corner them and say, hey, I have a $200 payment to make. I need a raise. That was that story resonated because I've heard several people do things like that. Let's talk about the proper way to get a raise. And again, we go back to the 3 Ps: prepare, present, and be professional. So what is your first kind of tool of the trade that you feel is critical? And it has to start with preparation, of course.
Sure. Well, it's interesting because I've had Fortune 500 HR managers read this book. I've had organizational managers, operations people read this book, and they love it. And the reason for it is because I challenge individuals to take an accountability of what they do bring to the table and be honest with themselves deep down inside to assess, okay, do I actually meet the grade of what's being asked of me in the present position? Have I exceeded that? Do I deserve a raise? Okay, and it's very important to really take that true self-assessment, be honest with yourself. The next thing is when you do that, your presentation is very easy because you've got your ducks in a row. And the interview, I call it an interview because it really is, that session should not be confrontational at all. If you've done your preparation, you've also alerted that you'd like to discuss the raise with the HR manager or with your boss, it's not a confrontational situation at all. It's just an exchange of facts about what the current status is. I like the point that you bring that up about the car payment, because that car payment and the fact that your obligations have gone up significantly has nothing to do with the reason to get a raise.
And that I think is a really critical point that you make in the book, because very often people feel, hey, the cost of living's gone up, so I have to get a raise. But, again, the company doesn't owe you that. You owe the company to be doing the best job you possibly can to make their bottom line. So you have to show that you are valuable to the company. How much are you worth? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, why should they even listen to the fact that they think that that you need more money? It's not up to them to make your lifestyle the way you want it, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And actually, when you make a statement like that, you lose all credibility.
Right.
And then the other part is on the professionalism side is that you may not get that raise. I don't guarantee that you're going to get a raise. If you take and do the presentation or preparation, you do the presentation, what it does is sets the tone for a future raise. because you and your boss, the HR manager, whomever it might be, can sit down and put together an action plan that's based on facts to help you get that raise in the future. So you're really having an open conversation of where you're hitting the mark and where you're not. HR managers love this. Employees love this book, and it's been very rewarding to get the feedback that
Well, I was just going to say, and you have many wonderful endorsements on here, and I could quote all of them, but I'll let people read the book, How to Get a Raise, the Correct Way to Ask for an Increase in Salary and Wages. But I just liked one line here that said, your boss controls your salary, but you determine your value to the company. So what this book does is help you realize this reality, and it's a game changer. This was Jan, who was an educator, who wrote that. And also, if people would use this as an opportunity, like even if you don't get the raise, you say look at it as an opportunity of how you can improve and set your SMART goals so that the next time you will be able to get a raise. Mm-hmm. But you also give tips in here of, how you kind of deal with somebody who's difficult, and the last thing you want to do is be confrontational or start trying to backtrack and defend yourself. You just really want to stick to your agenda and the facts, and that's where your preparation comes in.
Yeah, and and the professionalism at the end, how you handle yourself. You handle it in a positive way regardless of how it turns out, because you're setting the tone. Sometimes people will come out of a raise situation. They didn't get their raise, and so they become bitter, or they get into a confrontational situation, and where they could have had a nice reference for the next position, they don't get a nice reference for the next position because of that confrontational situation that they encountered.
Well, and you gave several examples in How to Get a Raise of, people, one gentleman, like being there 25 years and not getting his raise and just walking out, getting angry, and nobody wants to have somebody react like that. So right. You talk about how to say, even if you're disappointed, to thank them and to ask perhaps when will be the next time, what can you do to improve yourself, and when can you reevaluate. So your book is just filled with wonderful tips on thinking with the big picture, how to be a professional self, to understand that your boss is just a person, and you shouldn't be intimidated, how to engage in the conversation, and just to get started and to continue on it. And one thing I thought was very important is in the research, is to research what other people in your position would be and not only your position but your expertise, is what would be a normal amount for a raise or a salary, so that you're not being, a curmudgeon or being greedy. Mm-hmm. I think that's very critical too.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting you bring up that point, because I just had an interview with an individual that's looking to make a change, and I said, so what are you making now? And he told me, and I said, so what are you looking to make? And it was significantly higher. And I said, is that realistic for the market? He said, well, that's what I want. I said, okay, I understand that, but is it realistic for the market? He said, what do you mean? I said, have you researched to see what the market pays? He said, I don't care what the market pays. This is what I want. I said, okay, keep that in mind, because you may be disappointed when you find out the marketplace really doesn't pay that. Your expectations aren't realistic. So it's very important to take and do the research.
That's what I thought was very good in your book, is that we do have to be realistic about things, and it's not about what we want. It's about what the value is that we bring to that company, and, what the going rate is. Also, before we close, too, I thought that something that was important to bring up, and this is both for interviewing as well as getting a raise, is when you are talking to the HR person, of how to keep everything positive, as opposed to if you were in another job, you don't want to rant and rave about anything, or this isn't the time to air the dirty laundry, and you don't want to air anything negative or even share it, even if you have a good friend that's working in the same company with you, because you might even be violating company policies and talking about salaries or raises or any of that, right?
Exactly. There's been situations through the years where people have left that room, gone back, and shared that conversation with a group or with an individual. And basically what they did is create a discord. And, it's grounds for being fired. Or discussing financial, pay, salary issues. That's grounds for dismissal. And a lot of people don't realize that they get so tied up in the emotional side of all this that they don't use logic and common sense. And so that the book really goes there to help individuals take out the emotion out of all this. Let's be realistic and let's sit down and really put together a plan for action going forward.
Well, and as you said, it's taking the emotion out. Just stick to the facts, stick to being professional, stick to the 3 Ps method that Russ has outlined in both his books, How to Interview, How to Get a Raise, and those are prepare, present, and be professional. And you can find these books, you can get coaching from Russ, find out more, and there's lots of downloads that you can do too. Go to directionalmotivation.com. Russ also speaks, wherever you need a speaker on this. And something that everyone will love, that these books are very well thought out, very succinct, and they're short. They're under 100 pages. One is only about how to interview, is just about 90, and how to get a raise is about 99. So you can read them in a very short amount of time, just in time for that interview and just in time for that get a raise. But give yourself a little more time than that, right, Russ?
Exactly.
That would be part of the preparation.
Well, you know what's interesting too, and I don't know how much time we have right now, but I have high schools that are buying this for their curriculum. I have been contacted by 2 colleges that are putting this into their curriculum. And what I would say this would be, I'm going to promote this a little bit. The How to Interview book would be a tremendous purchase for individuals with graduates that are coming out of high school, graduates that are coming out of college, getting ready to enter the marketplace, because I've written it to help them as well. It's good for anybody, but this will really help them.
And it would be a great gift for a high school or college graduate. Or, I just think it's a great book for anyone to have and keep it as a resource book, because what is the statistics now where people change jobs, in a lifetime you're going to have 5 to 7 jobs. People aren't, they don't get that gold watch very much anymore because we change jobs more often. So exactly. How to Interview, we're going to be doing it over and over. And it's really important to have a guide on your side. So Russ Hovendick, Hovendick, How to Interview and How to Get a Raise. So we are out of time, Russ. Thank you for being on StarStyle, Be the Star You Are. And again, please go to directionalmotivation.com. This book has been endorsed by businesses and educational leaders across the country, and I know that you will find it incredibly self-directing and very, very helpful in any of your endeavors for your future career. So thank you, Russ, for writing, and thank you for coming on StarStyle, Be the Star You Are, to enlighten our listeners and help them make a difference in their lives and that of their employers.
Cynthia, it's been a pleasure. I've really, really enjoyed it. And, a plug for you guys. Your philanthropy efforts have been just phenomenal. And I just really am encouraged by what you're doing as well.
Well, thank you. We appreciate that. We want everyone